In a distant time, in an era so old that only legends remember it,
Atlantis was located beyond the pillars,
in the heart of the vast ocean known as the Atlantic Ocean.
a place that no one could easily reach. The ocean surrounded this continent on all sides, enveloping it in mystery and enchantment.
On the surface of this continent,
There were magnificent cities built by a great people. These cities were made of precious stones. The temples glittered in the sunlight.
and the gardens were full of strange flowers and trees that no one had seen anywhere else.
The people of Atlantis were known for their intelligence and naval power. They owned massive ships equipped with the latest technologies and an invincible naval fleet. Atlantis enjoyed military and commercial power,
And its people sailed the seas trading with other nations.
collecting wealth from all corners of the world.
Despite their remarkable advancements in the arts of war and engineering,
They were also creative in culture and art. Atlantis was ruled by a great king named Atlas,
he was a wise and powerful king.
renowned for his wisdom and justice. He ruled the entire continent with wisdom and foresight.
Under Atlas's reign, the people of Atlantis lived in prosperity and peace. The land was fertile, the waters abundant, and their skies were filled with stars that led their way.
The people lived in harmony.
With nature and worshipped the gods, who had blessed them with all these gifts.
The people of Atlantis respected the gods and maintained
A close relationship with them.
offering sacrifices and holding grand religious celebrations. They believed that the gods had granted them power and wealth because they deserved it due.
To their good qualities. But as time passed, a change began to happen in the hearts of the Atlanteans. As generations passed,
The people of Atlantis began to feel superior to all others. They started to boast of their power and wealth.
forgetting the virtues that had made them great in the first place.
They began to believe that they were the masters of the universe and that no one could defeat them.
Greed and avarice began to spread in their hearts.
And they neglected the values that their civilization was founded upon.
Internal wars broke out between different classes, and the justice that once prevailed turned into oppression and greed. What made things worse was their desire for
Expansion and domination over other peoples, instead of maintaining peace with their neighbors. They began to interfere in the affairs of neighboring nations.
seeking to control lands that were not theirs. When this reached its peak,
The people of Atlantis were overwhelmed by corruption, rebelling against the gods who had given them this blessed land.
the gods became angry at the actions of the Atlanteans.
They decided to punish them for their corruption and tyranny.
The gods had watched how the people of Atlantis had turned from good people into tyrants, and punishment was inevitable.
On a stormy day, when the sky was filled with dark clouds,
The gods' anger began to manifest,
the earth trembled beneath the feet of the Atlanteans, and violent earthquakes erupted.
destroying everything in their path.
The earth swallowed cities and buildings, and everything collapsed in moments.
Then came the great catastrophe. The waters engulfed everything.
The sea swallowed the entire continent, leaving no trace behind.
In an instant, Atlantis vanished from existence.
All that remained of that great continent were the legends told by people. No one would ever mention the great continent that was Atlantis, and the ocean that once engulfed the fertile land became mysterious and strange.
The search for the lost Atlantis continued for thousands of years, but the sea kept its secrets deep within.
Many sailors and explorers tried to find the remains of the continent, but all their efforts failed.
Atlantis remained only a dream, a memory far from realization.
Yet, the story lived on in the imagination of people. Atlantis served as a warning to future
Generations.
how great power can collapse in an instant if one strays from their principles.
The story reminded them of the importance of humility and justice, and warned them of the consequences of arrogance and greed.
And even though Atlantis sank into the sea, its lessons remain alive in the memory of humanity, told to future generations. Thus, Atlantis remains part of the myths told everywhere,
And the story of its disappearance
continues to stir curiosity and questions.
was Atlantis real or just a legend? But in the end, the answer remains unknown, just as the sinking of
Atlantis in the sea remains a mystery.
that no one has been able to solve.
As the ages passed,
The dream of Atlantis continued to haunt scientists and explorers,
they began to search the depths,
diving into the oceans and reviewing ancient
maps that might hold clues to the location of the lost continent.
There were many theories about where Atlantis might be, but no one was able to provide definitive evidence.
Was it ever truly real? Or is it just a tale passed down through generations to teach
future ones lessons about pride and humility?
These questions remain suspended in the air, and we may never know the answer,
But the story itself will remain alive in the human imagination.
echoing every time we find ourselves questioning the fate of civilizations.
We destroy with our own hands in the end.
Atlantis remains part of a Greek legend where truth blends with fiction.